We can see here that statement B should be the first statement. There's a difference between B and the other statements, and the difference is in the timeline or the time frame of the statement. B refers to the past tense. A few years ago, Herb Stein defined. So this is something which occurs in the past. And we see from the other statements that they are all in the present. Even on the fundamental question, this is statement A, on the fundamental questions of availability of petroleum, there is as much confusion among people generally taken to be knowledgeable. This is statement C, about national and world affairs. There is a widespread belief, but it still seems fair to conclude that confusion about energy continues to reign supreme over understanding. So all of these statements, that is A, C, and D, they refer to the present tense, while B refers to the past. So ideally, we should put B at the beginning. By essence, we get that same conclusion. We come to that same conclusion as well. A few years ago, Herb Stein defined an energy expert as anyone who knew that Abu Dhabi is a place and Gaddafi a person. So this talks about a very simplified understanding needed to be defined as an energy expert. That is, one has to know that Abu Dhabi is a place and Gaddafi is a person. And then the one statement that immediately bridges the gap between the past tense and the present, as in this statement and the rest, is statement D, which says, we have come a long way since then in our knowledge of energy, but it still seems fair to conclude that confusion about energy continues to reign supreme over understanding. So we have come a long way since then. Since then is, of course, referring to a few years ago when Herb Stein defined what was necessary knowledge to be defined as to be called an energy expert. We also talk about knowledge of energy, which connects directly with this aspect. Then it says, it defines the present context, that there is confusion regarding the energy regime or the energy industry. But it still seems fair to conclude that confusion about energy continues to reign supreme over understanding. So we find there's a very strong connection between B and D, and we have defined that B should be the opening statement. So we place B in our sequence as the first statement, and then we place D as the second statement. We also know that B and D form a pair. Next, we get statements A and C. The placing of these might seem a little confusing, but it should not be too much trouble. A says, even on the fundamental questions of the availability of petroleum, there's as much confusion and conflict as ever. And C tells us, among people generally taken to be knowledgeable about national and world affairs, there is a widespread belief that a severe shortage exists or is rapidly developing. So if we look at this statement, then at first glance, C might seem to be very introductory in tone, and one might think that C is the opening statement. But if we do that, then it is very difficult to place B. Then the tense, the time of these statements, it becomes a rebound. We have C in the present tense, then somewhere down the line, B comes in, which goes to the past, and then we come back to the present with D. So it's all over the place. Instead, we've placed BD at the beginning. Now we place A and C. We find that A actually connects better with D. We have already defined the position of D. So we do well to connect these two statements, try to connect any one of these two statements with D. And we find that A does that. Even on the fundamental question of the availability of petroleum, there is much confusion and conflict as ever. So we connect with this, the aspect of confusion about energy continuing to reign supreme. There's confusion about energy, and on the fundamental question of the availability of petroleum, which is a part of the argument of energy. Petroleum is how, in many cases, not most cases, but it's one way that energy can be developed or can be generated. There is as much confusion and conflict as ever. So confusion continues to reign supreme. There's as much confusion. There's a direct connection there. C changes the argument slightly. It goes into the aspect of among people generally taken to be knowledgeable about national and world affairs. There is a widespread belief that a severe shortage exists or is rapidly developing. So this does connect with the aspect of there being confusion and conflict, but this takes it to the argument of people who are knowledgeable about national and world affairs. There's a widespread belief that a severe shortage of what or who? People who are knowledgeable about the aspects of energy. So on the aspect of knowledge of energy, there's a severe shortage of people who are knowledgeable about energy, who are, say, experts on energy. There's a severe shortage of that. So C is a slight change of argument. We can connect A with D much better than we can connect C. Actually, we can have C. It's a change of argument. It's a slight change of argument. So we can have C after D. But if we do place C after D, then A would again go back to an aspect which is mentioned in D. So C in between of D and A actually breaks the order. Thus, we get the third statement as statement A. And finally, C comes in as the fourth and final statement. So with that, we have the sequence done. The correct answer is BDAC.